Cool. Next up, we will be hearing from David on multi-chain accounts on Near. And we have a click over here. Yeah, perfect. So here we go.
Thanks so much. Hello, everyone. I'm David Millar, Durrant, and I'm here from the Emerging Technologies team of Pagoda. Thanks so much to the DevHub team for that really great talk. I'm really looking forward to seeing the community development grow sort of as much as it possibly can. I'm here to talk to you today about multi-chain. We have a view inside our team, which is that users shouldn't have to know they're using a blockchain. I'm not normally the type to quote Ronald Reagan, but if you're explaining, you're losing. We found that you should only be talking to people about the benefits of blockchain, and they should never know about the costs. They should never know about how the thing works unless they're interested in how the thing works. So most of our research is focused on hiding that from the user as much as we possibly can. Right now, blockchain accounts are relatively immature generally. Users need to have a sense of what a private key is. They need to have a sense of how you need to store a private key. They need to know what a seed phrase is. They also need to understand how they link between different chains. These are all deeply complex and deeply nuanced things. Every time we onboard a user from a Web 2 to Web 3, we have to explain these things. We have to make them confident they're doing the right thing, and we have to take them through the steps to get onboarded. Generally, if you work in Web 2, you'll know that for about every step you make a user do, you'll lose sort of 25 to 30% of users. Right now, there's sort of 8 to 10 steps involved in onboarding to a regular Web 3 application, which is terrible. Generally, the numbers we see in our industry for people losing their for users making it through to the end is between 1.5% and 2%, which is really, really awful. We tried to address this year. We released a product called FastAuth, and the aim of it was to obscure the cost of gas on our chain using something called meta transactions. It was to use a standard way of having accounts, which was email. People are very used to typing their emails in to sign in. And we used biometrics instead of passwords because it allowed people to more securely store their identities without using passwords. The problem with this is it only works on Near. So people still have to onboard when they're using NearChain. They have to have some sort of concept of what NearChain is, and they have to have a real willingness to use it. What's more, we can't do application interoperability between any of the chains right now. We're completely siloed. Our whole industry is smaller than a large American tech company, yet you have to make every single ecosystem every time on every single chain. It's mad. So what we've been working on for the last couple of months is multi-chain accounts. Accounts are really the crown jewels of the Near blockchain. They're a not so understood feature, but it's the one thing we can do which is better than almost anyone else. Every single Near account has a full smart contract running on it. You can do full key rotation. You can define arbitrary rules that give you arbitrary amounts of control. So for example, someone could sign in with Google. If you see an OAuth token, you can give them a certain level of access, but in order to withdraw more than a certain amount of Near, they need to take extra steps, like using their ledger device, finding their private key, all these kinds of things. Just having accounts and not having much else is not particularly useful. So what we're trying to do is bring the best of the Near blockchain to every other blockchain. This is account aggregation. What we do is we allow a Near account to control any other account on any other chain. This means that once you've created one crypto account, you have every crypto account. Your Near account can hold Bitcoin, transact on Bitcoin. It can work as well, and I'll show later, better than any existing key storage technology. It gives you greater utility with the ease of use that you'd expect from something like FastAuth. How does this work? We created a technology called chain signatures. Chain signatures put a potentially unlimited number of private keys inside of every single smart contract and every single account on the NEAR blockchain. This means that you can have all the upsides of a NEAR account, you can hold a key inside your NEAR account, and then you can interact elsewhere. Using key derivation, you can add an arbitrary string to any one of your private keys and securely generate a new key. This means that you could have one account that holds 10 million keys without any storage cost, provided you can derive those keys correctly. How does it look to developers? We are adding a new host function to the system. This host function is called sign. If your smart contract calls it, any arbitrary payload can be signed. The way it is signed is that we have an MPC network. Now, MPC is a really cool piece of technology. Effectively, when you use MPC, you have a virtual machine with secrets inside of it. Many nodes run this virtual machine together. They run a computation over the secret, but no individual one of these nodes has a secret. What's more, as the nodes change, the keys remain the same. So you could have, over a period of time, the nodes will come and go, ship a Theseus style, and eventually you'll have a completely different set of nodes, but your keys will be completely preserved. This is particularly secure because the key is never assembled anywhere. There's no individual has any ability to misuse your key outside of the protocol. So we have accounts. We have the ability to sign in and interact with a chain. But we need more than that. FastAuth only works because of something called relayers. Relayers are a technology which allows, previously on NEAR, if your user wanted to use your application, they had to pay in the native governance token for the gas of that application. We saw that application developers were saving pennies worth of gas, but losing dollars worth of users. Or literally orders of magnitude difference in like the effect on cost of acquisition. So what we did was we allowed sponsors to exist. Sponsors can selectively pay for people's NEAR transactions. When they pay for a NEAR transaction, they observe what it does, they make a decision about whether or not they want to pay for it, and the user has no ability to extract the funds in any other way. So how do we bring this cross-chain? The current model is you have a NEAR account, that NEAR account holds a key, that key interacts with Ethereum. Very simple. The user still needs to top up ETH, and what's more, he needs to have a concept of what chain he's using. Users should never have a concept of what chain they're using. It is not relevant information. I don't care whether a website is hosted on AWS or GCP. I just want to use the application. So what do? We bring the sponsors back in. The sponsor runs an on-NEAR chain application. That on-NEAR chain application develops a series of rules of what can be done with the sponsor's funds. Those rules control the key inside of the NEAR account. And that gives them the confidence to put Ethereum in someone else's wallet without it getting immediately taken away. These faucet attacks are very common, and without protections against them, you will get your faucets drained almost immediately. You can start to see the power of this solution now. It's not just that you have a key, but you have a key which is governed by a smart contract. You can trust a smart contract to operate in a certain way without trusting the individual, unlike with a regular program. It's exactly the same with these keys. You can trust that the key will behave correctly at all times because it is governed by a transparent smart contract that you can have some sort of say in. Business models we want to see when this comes out are people using things like Sweat to pay for things across chains. So provided you pay Sweat to the sponsor, they will sponsor your Ethereum transactions. This allows for people who have developed tokens on NEAR to have new forms of tokenomics. You can get paid by application developers to onboard your users onto their chain. You have burn mechanisms for your token now. You have real utility across chains. So it's three forms of revenue. First of all, you get paid for the users. Secondly, you get burns. And thirdly, your users get more use out of the token, so there's more demand for it. This is clearly new and interesting economics for our chain. Now I'm going to start to talk about what you can build on top of this chain. These are things we haven't built yet, and we may not be able to build. And the beautiful thing about being in the Near ecosystem is that we don't have to build everything. Everything we do is open source. Anyone can jump in. I'm going to make the argument right now that there are 4 or 5 huge businesses you could build on top of this technology if you have the wherewithal. And I would encourage any of you to have a serious think about doing this. With these MPC nodes and the signatures, we have the ability to do a very clever type of encryption. This encryption allows any individual to have a encrypted communication with a smart contract, deposit an encrypted payload on that smart contract, and then have that content be re-encrypted and sent on to any arbitrary third party. You do not need to know these third parties up front. So in this example, this rather old individual is writing a book. He posts that book on chain, and he says, anyone who pays me 10 NEAR will get a copy of this book. These customers pay those 10 NEAR and will receive an encrypted copy of the book that they can decrypt using their own key. This is an incredibly powerful tool. This allows content creators for the first time to use decentralized systems to gate their content. You can make a decentralized medium. You can make decentralized podcasts. You can make anything that requires any level of privacy. Messaging services, incredibly simple. You can make a version of WhatsApp that doesn't lose your messages when you change devices, but remains wholly encrypted end to end. Furthermore, there's very, very interesting economic things that shake out of this. One of the real problems on chains like Ethereum is MEV, or minor extractable value, or maximal extractable value, depending what you want to call it. Miners can see transactions before they come in and take actions which extract value from those users. What you can do in this situation is you can get every single user to send encrypted bids to your chain. At a given point, when the bid closes, the chain will take all the encrypted bids and decrypt them and synchronously evaluate all of them. This allows you to do things like Dutch auctions and generally do more efficient trading with lower slippage for the individuals involved. This is something you can't do right now on any other chain and is, sort of potentially a really useful thing. On top of that, you can have encrypted pools of transactions that control keys that interact with Ethereum. So you can have efficient, cheap gas, hidden transactions, no MEV, leading and then settling out on another chain, which has higher levels of liquidity. This means we can make the fastest, most capital-efficient DEXs on NEAR without necessarily having the TVL required to do it. The next very interesting technology, and this is a pretty significant amount of work, so if you're planning to do this, I would say get some money first. Domains and websites, front ends of smart contracts, are the ugliest part of our industry. We have this beautiful decentralized system where no one can tamper with any of the code running on half the application. We have these sort of audited, really thought about smart contracts on the back end. But on the front end, it's basically just a website. And the person who runs that website can arbitrarily change the code on that website and cause it to take people's funds. There's been over $1 billion of funds taken out of people's accounts in various hacks in the generally Ethereum ecosystem. The reason is everything from SIM swaps to insiders to password leaks have led to hundreds of millions of dollars disappearing in individual hacks, whole projects going underwater. What's more, it's difficult to trust front ends, which makes you have to do terrible UX decisions that really push people away. When you have the ability to sign something with a smart contract, you can use a combination of DNSSEC and signed exchanges to prove that every single thing served off your domain is always approved by your smart contract. That means you can use regular smart contract governance to decide what hashes of what assets can and can't be served at a given time. This gives you transparency, so you can be sure that the application being served is the correct one. And as well as transparency, it gives you the ability to vote for changes in your application on a full stack rather than just the back end. If you can make a secure smart contract, you can make a secure front end. And these technologies are well supported. You can upload these assets to Cloudflare and generally any edge technology and serve them as quickly as you'd serve anything else. There's no need to bounce off a smart contract each time. It's just there for the signature when you change assets. This also allows an incredible level of censorship resistance. Because anyone can host your assets, you can have an open field to allow any individual in any jurisdiction to host your assets, and you know they'll be correct. So you can allow them to use your domain incredibly safely. I'm going to have to speed up a tiny bit because we've got far too many of these use cases. The next one is heterogeneous sharding. A big part of the blockchain ecosystem is private blockchain shards. Private blockchain shards kind of suck right now. They sort of do their own thing on the side, they have their own little world, they have their own little tokens, and basically no one can really interact with them in any kind of meaningful way. Any other near shard, private or otherwise, can sign transactions, send a message from one shard, it can land on the other, and they can respond. And you can have a fully decentralized form of custody of these messages, meaning that messaging on any other shard is just as easy as messaging on the shard you're currently on. This allows for potentially limitless scalability and various different properties of each shard. Capabilities. There is a small cult of capabilities inside the blockchain ecosystem. It's a very nuanced computer science system, but if you can sign payloads, you can attach a proof to messages saying, I am who I say I am. I represent this user. I am holding 100 near, and if you have this thing, you can take this and put it on, and bring it back, almost like a bearer bond. This allows for very quick, very cheap cross-chain transactions. Key markets. Key markets are incredibly simple. Because you can govern keys by smart contracts, you can deposit funds in a key, be sure these keys are locked, and then exchange keys for one another. Or, alternatively, you can have exchanges that hold things like Bitcoin and Ethereum that run on NEAR, but you can withdraw by getting keys that have, say, 10 Bitcoin in each one of them. You get control of that key, you withdraw it to an address you like the look of, it gets burnt. Finally, let's talk about signer economics very, very quickly. Traditionally, in systems like this, the downside is that if all the MPC nodes were to collude, we would be in a situation where they could potentially use your key. So what happens is they all need to stake. Generally, when you stake, the value locked needs to be less than the value staked. We've come up with a new system, tentatively called the RAT protocol, which allows people to do a form of quadratic staking. What this does is, for each node you have participating in the system, you require the amount of stake each node requires is the square root of the amount of stake that needs to be there. The reason is that any individual node that gets pulled into collusion can prove that people are asking them to collude. This means that if people ask me to collude and they have 3 Bitcoin worth of stake and I have but only 1 Bitcoin worth of stake, I can take their stake if they ask me to collude. This means it's impossible to trust people when you're attempting to collude. It's a very interesting problem because people say, I am dishonest and I want to steal from people, but you should trust me. It makes it almost impossible for people to take from this system. So what's the timeline? End of this month, we're going to have something out on testnet. If you're thinking of building one of these things I've been talking about, or anything else using this technology, you should jump on that. We're going to have documentation out. We're going to have something working, and we really want to get you building. February, if you're a capital allocator, or you run a validator node, we want to get you to the next level of validation, which includes running these signatures. You'll get higher rewards. You will need a slightly higher stake, but it's going to be worth it. Finally, March 31st, we're opening this up to users. It'll be on mainnet. People can use it. People can start using the experiences people have built on top of this. I genuinely believe that this is the most exciting feature to come out since launch. I think it allows whole new business models and allows you to build things that were impossible to build on any other chain. Thank you so much for listening, and let me know if you have any questions.
That was an amazing talk. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you so much, David. Amazing talk. I love what you're building in Pagda. I've been watching what you're doing for the past 3 years.
Sorry, speak up, Daniel.
So yeah, I have two questions for you, man.
Sure.
First one, explain please some of the main benefits that sponsors have when they pay user transaction fees. And the second one, due to the fact that now with Near protocol, you're starting to focus on the multi-chain infrastructure for everyone, let's say, and it becomes global. It potentially can become a very global thing, right? How do you essentially make actions that are, I'm talking about the front end on chain, how do you make signless every action? Because right now on near.org and Near Horizon platform, you still have to sign every action you make on the website. So what are your thoughts on that too? Thank you so much.
So I'll ask your second question first, and then you may have to ask me your first question again because I will have likely forgotten it. No, why would you want to pay for things across different chains? The reason is that, first of all, generally, applications that are trying to bootstrap users on any chain would be happy to pay their users gas costs at the very start. So likely, if you are paying in Sweat on this chain, Sweat will not actually be paying anything on the other end. The application developer will likely be paying a large portion of the cost. So the people who are incentivized on the other chain side to take very low fees and effectively pay their own gas fees, provided it's Sybil resistant. Secondly, it's ease of use. If you are going around, you have an application, it's easier to get hold of one token rather than manage 40 different balances of 40 different chains. So generally, I believe, even if Near was even if the token issuer was taking a 25% cut, the ease of switching would be such that most people they'd be better off just using one token. But we allow you to select the token you pay for things with. So we make a decision, if you are doing something on Ethereum and you have Ethereum inside your account, we will generally, unless someone is willing to pay for you, we would generally prefer that you use the Ethereum. Then we'll look at sort of the next most expensive one and the next most expensive one, the next most expensive one. The second part of your question was about signing on the front end. You are completely correct. So generally the signing process is relatively quick. On its own, it takes currently about 240 milliseconds if the nodes are relatively close to each other. So it's slightly less painful than what we currently have right now. But you would have to go through a round of consensus, which is 0.7 seconds on top of the Near blockchain on top of that. So we're talking about roughly a 1 second interaction. This is imperfect. But when you look at the speed of other chains, it's going to be a very, very small part of the latency of the total action, we believe. There are some fast ones like Solana, but generally it's going to be relatively acceptable, we think, but imperfect. We do not have the ability to do effectively limited access keys. So what you could do is you could have a signature on chain that you receive and then do a key derivation on top of that using the sort of encrypted protocol. I'd have to think about it more. We can maybe talk about it afterwards. I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit into the weeds.
Yeah, so thank you so much for the presentation. To me, all this sounds revolutionary, and not only for Near ecosystem, but for other, like Ethereum or any other chain, right?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I also like DA, all the announcements that we got yesterday, like to me it seems it is as promising for us as it is for other chains. So my question is, what are you guys doing in order to, spread the word about all this amazing stuff to Ethereum people, right? To say, come here and do all this beautiful stuff. Thank you.
So, in my opinion, Ethereum is a very hard nut to crack, and it wouldn't be where I'd start. Right now, what we're doing is we're going out and we're talking to as many other L1s as possible about partnerships. And we have had very, very positive responses from some, which I can't name right now, basically saying, look, we don't want to do what you do well. You guys are fabulous at your niche. If you're a Bitcoin L2, you are the best at transferring Bitcoin. You're the best at Bitcoin DeFi. But we're pretty good at onboarding. How about you use us for onboarding, and we'll use you for your sort of Bitcoin L2 things. And I haven't come across an L1 yet that thinks that's a bad idea. All of us realize we need to focus on what we're good at. And I think we're going to I hope we're going to see some really great partnerships come out at the start of March, because this is not just Near, this is the whole blockchain thing. All right. Well, thanks so much for having me, and thanks for listening.